UOB get the audio that they want, and CBC get the video and the interview that they want to do. And days when you had to be setting up the bulbs whenever you go to an event and wait for when they cool down.
Huh? Poetry? What should he do? Yeah, I never really checked for that yet, but if you look too noisy, you would say too if I sleep. Yeah, going there, you want to know, you should know. I know. Probably got to change, but I never changed it. I never changed it. So you can't change it back there on your thing, on your thing. You can't change it back on there.
This scarf and
the shirt that you want? Yes. He only ordered males.
See, this is video open. See, SDA is set for ADA.
see you going and make up and a hijab.
I have worn it before. Yeah, I have worn a hijab before.
You had to go Saudi Arabia or something?
No, here. With these. And it's no big deal. So tight, man. People found it rather strange.
White? Man flew a draw around and won, but he didn't find it strange. You know. Of course, the rest of her was not necessarily covered.
That's the ironies of it all, huh?
Didn't change your.
Paula?
Oh my God, you call your change, you didn't.
Martin, you said it's streaming live and it will also be on YouTube?
Wait. So eventually afterwards,
It'll be there. I leave it over what we give it enough. Anything else?
I am so sad for sure recording on my phone because I don't have my camera either. I have nothing. I had a pen in my hand and a pad. As I recorded your shit up. I should always walk. Yeah, I had a pen and a pad. My camera never recording. Like I said, I was supposed to get an assignment. I just left home and then get a message telling me, yeah, this is at 10:30. I already left home. I get home, I can't in the office like that.
I mean, you can't go in the office like that, right?
Well, I can, but
hold a minute.
You might get a
I choose not to.
They're just working with you. More important for your appearance for a newspaper that getting printed, that your physical presence not going to be seen equally as anonymous as radio as somebody.
Alright, that's not what I'm saying, right? If I'm going in the office to work,
my office like that now,
if I'm going in the office to work, I will not dress like this.
Call me up in an emergency to provide you with something, and you want it, and I call me print that line or broadcast.
No, if I have to go in the office for something, I will go in the office, but if I'm going to sit down and work, I will not dress like this. Not just sit down and work. If I have to go in for something, I can go in the office like this, obviously. For something, but if I get to sit down and work, if I pass through the pickup or drop off, that's fine, but not I gotta sit down and work. Not during the week.
So morning, how you man? I haven't seen you in a while, man. I can see that. I can see you out better. Yeah. Man, it's good. I had it for you. First tennis game this morning.
Man, it's not wrong with it. Yesterday wrong. Every do first tennis game.
I want to see when you ever just so that I would play with you and get you. So you
go ahead. Because they're behind them, so they have to be.
Hello, Kurt.
How you say?
One second, you know.
No,
get you what you want.
No, you want to tell me how you would have won.
It's all in my ear, right?
No, that was not.
Your side is good. Your side is good.
My side is good?
Yeah.
Right in
is that what they are, right?
Yours too high. No, fair farm. Fair farm.
That's too low now.
No, fair. There.
Calm down.
This side.
Calm down.
Good.
Yes?
Down. Good.
What's the answer? That's all.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Right, you see the same game I was asking you about?
Yeah, they great part. My brother. There's the boy look. Yeah, you may say that. We got it. Hello, boy. I didn't get one yet. I just want to go.
Can't see the ball. Lord help him.
Don't put it across yet. Let him get it. Let him get it.
You may not even need any because the hair doesn't have to be. So you could leave it.
Dark.
Closing
cars you can own.
Right.
Some
Huh?
cars there was like
God, they still have
a
it?
zillion bicycles on.
No, they still have it?
Yeah. As far as I know, I haven't been back in several years.
Oh, you said you had to. You had to talk
Yeah,
to
well, I mean, I can only speak for what I know.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues all. I'm your coordinator, Martin Paris, for the BiiG Games. And as usual, I'm just going to advise all present to adjust their personal phone devices for audio control purposes. And as we begin our launch of the BiiG 2017 Games, I'm going to lead us in a word of prayer. You can remain how you are. I'm sure the Almighty recognizes our prayers and supplications, whether we're sitting, standing. But just observe a moment of reverence. And as I say, Father, you have said where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, there shall you be also. Be with us today and throughout the conduct of the BiiG 2017 Games. Bless us, guide us, protect us, and help us to have a more successful 2017 BiiG Games in the true Olympic spirit. We ask these things through your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ, the Lord. Amen. Allow me to introduce the head table. To my immediate right is Glenn Clark, the General Manager of the Barbados Olympic Association. To my immediate left, Lieutenant Colonel Trevor Brown, Chairman of the Organizing Committee of the BiiG Games. The gentleman who has the pleasure of sitting next to my lady colleague is Dave Farmer, the Director of the National Olympic Academy, in his portfolio today as the coordinator of the beach games, an element of the BiiG Games itself, and one of our, I almost said local organizing committee, but OC members, Itania Wiggins. She's also one of my arms. At this moment, I'm going to give way for the GM to come and address us on the 2017 BiiG Games.
Thank you, Martin. Lieutenant Colonel Trevor Brown, Chairman of the BiiG Committee and Director of the Barbados Olympic Association. Dave Farmer, Director of Olympic Academy, members of the BiiG Organizing Committee, members of the media, a special welcome to my friend Mike King. Welcome to the Olympic Center again. Harry McKenzie of the tennis, Craig Archer, squash, and Catherine Daniel, Barbados rugby football. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to the media briefing of the BiiG Games. Let me extend apologies for our President and Secretary General who are attending board and commission meetings overseas. Today, at this media briefing, we are on the eve of an exciting 6 to 8 weeks of sport for the sporting fraternity. Some 36 different sporting activity ranging from chess, bridge, representing the mind sports, to beach volleyball, basketball, rugby, team sports, individual sports like tennis, table tennis, squash, etc. These sports have been clamoring to join these BiiG Games, and my compliments to Lieutenant Colonel Brown and his organizing committee, as these sports have been clamoring to join, which augurs well for the conduct of the games over the next few weeks. Following on from last year, when we envisaged a small group of sporting disciplines coming together to form what we were the inaugural 50th Independence Games. The success of those games have launched this, and I compliment again Lieutenant Colonel Brown for capitalizing on that initiative and bringing the games to what looks like to be a successful game for 2017. Here at the BOA, we are very excited as this fulfills our mandate of providing wholesome activities for both the young and the old. And after witnessing the Carifta Triathlon and Aquathon last weekend, I'm more inspired and look forward to the next 2 months again, as I said, of sporting activity. As I don't want to step on and steal the chairman's thunder, I end by just wishing all teams and the national federations well as they prepare for the conduct of these games over the next 2 months. And I wish the organizing committee much success as they prepare for these games. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. He's also our host today. This event is being streamed live via YouTube. It's also available on the Facebook page of the BOA. And we're trying to embrace all forms of media and social and other media. And as I look in a certain direction, I've been reminded that it's also going out live on Instagram. Okay. Gotta embrace the information superhighway. Lieutenant Colonel Trevor Brown, the chairman of the BiiG Organizing Committee, will now come and flesh out some more of the details that were hinted at by the GM.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Martin. Glenn Clark, Manager of Olympic Operations of the Barbados Olympic Association. Dave Farmer and Itanya from my organizing committee at the head table, who have been invaluable assets in getting this whole plan together. And I recognize in the audience that we have some representatives from our national federations in tennis in the form of Mr. Harry McKenzie, in rugby, Kathy Daniel, and I see Craig Archer from squash also represented here, and thank you for coming. I must tell you that it is with a large measure of excitement and of anticipation that I welcome you all here today as we announce the details of the coming Barbados Olympic Association's Independence Invitational Games 2017. But as I'm sure you all know, this concept started its life last year as our sporting salute to Barbados during our Jubilee celebrations. At that time, our national sport federations chose to create such an event as our way of celebrating that memorable national occasion. That first iteration has so much exceeded our expectations in terms of support from our various sporting publics that we have since made the decision at the BOA level and at the organizing committee level to establish these games as an annual affair, and as well to rebrand and to expand the concept into what we are now seeking to call our BiiG project, B with two I's. BiiG, the BOA's Independence Invitational Games, will be an annual, multi-sport, multidisciplinary, high-quality program of IOC-approved sport tournaments. It will be organized under the BiiG umbrella and will generally be held during the month of November each year in celebration of Barbados's independence celebrations. Participation by various sporting entities will be at the individual discretion of our various member national federations. As you know, we have 36 member national associations attached to the BOA, and each one will have at their discretion the right to invite various persons to participate in these games. Such participation may be local, it may be regional, and indeed it may be international. And as well, such participation may be open by invitation, or it may be open to anyone. So that gives you an idea of the scope and the variety of inputs that we're inviting into these games. In terms of the spirit of the games, which we spent a lot of time trying to put together so that we actually conceptualize what we wanted the games to feel like. As we have outlined previously, the spirit will be driven by the Olympic values of excellence, respect, and fair play. But we've also added the Barbados independence values of pride and industry, and the sporting attributes of inclusiveness and environmental awareness. Inclusiveness and environmental awareness probably deserve a little bit of special mention because what we're working on a motto that, as Nelson Mandela once said, sport can change the world. But if you're going to change the world by sport, we have to include the world in what we do. We can't be playing our sport just to our very small select audiences. So we want to be inclusive, and we've challenged our national federations this year to bring new publics into their sport. And that's the concept we're trying to catch by the word inclusiveness. I started by saying that I was excited. My excitement comes to a large extent from the phenomenal response of support that we have been receiving from our national federations for this project. That segment is tickled even more by the vision that is beginning to develop among the organizing committee of a future for these games, one that is beyond anything that we have been contemplating in local sport in recent times. May I suggest a Caribbean Games? When our 50th anniversary games was first conceived, our expectations were that due to high costs, limitations on facilities, venues, no more than 4, 6, 8 of our national sports would be able to participate in such celebrations. But, as you know, our sports administrators reached into the bag and pulled off an event with 25 sports on a shoestring budget, but interestingly, with outstandingly high quality results. And we know that because we actually measured them. In BiiG 2017, there are some 36 different sports events now on board with this project. Many of them with expanded programs, each one, I can guarantee you, with a focus on high quality, and some with very impressive international and regional inputs. Now, as you'll hear later, we are very lucky in many cases to have some of these projects, as I'll discuss a little bit later. Indeed, were it not for the devastation caused in the region by the recent hurricanes that we are all aware of, the level of regional participation in some of these, in some more of these sports would have been even higher than we are actually seeing. In terms of our calendar of events, the games kick off on October 28th at 4 p.m. with our opening ceremony at Pirates Cove. This will be an opening ceremony with a difference, and it will be in keeping with the spirit of the games, driven by the Olympic values, the national values, and our inclusiveness. Interestingly, boxing will start the competition rolling on that very night of the opening ceremony and at the very venue of Pirates Cove. The month of November will then be a very busy period, as Mr. Clark iterated earlier, for our athletes, for our officials in multiple sporting disciplines, and hopefully for our sporting public, who we hope that we can get fully on board with these activities in supporting our athletes and our administrators. As would be expected, activities will be concentrated on weekends. This is why, in order to make all the weekends in November available for sports, we scheduled the opening ceremony to be the last weekend in October, and the closing ceremony will be the first weekend in December. In any case, so big is the Rugby World Sevens Festival that we've made a special exception in their case, and that event will have the weekend of December 9th to 10th all to themselves. As you will hear, they have very interesting expectations in terms of worldwide participation in that event. We had for the first example last year, which was very successful, and we think that we've ironed some things out, and this year is even going to be more successful. So that there are 11 events scheduled to include regional and international participation. These are archery, boxing, chess, with an interesting event, just having gained the rights to host the Pan American Championships on 28th November to 2nd December. Unfortunately, they're not here now because they actually represented in Turkey at a major conference, finalizing details and all that. Cycling will be hosting the Caribbean Junior Championships from the 4th to the 5th. And again, this is a result of the hurricane situation. This tournament was scheduled to be held in Puerto Rico, has been rescheduled to Barbados because of the situation, the hurricanes, and it's going to be a very, very large championship hosted by the Cycling Union. There's also equestrian, judo with their usual big tournament this time of the year. I mentioned rugby before. Sailing, volleyball, beach volleyball will have a regional competition. Weightlifting is seeking to even build on what they did last year. Again, international with a very impressive array of people coming in. And beach wrestling has also gone international this year with a number of competitors coming from overseas. In terms of the national championships, there are 13 championships that are scheduled to be held during this period under the BiiG umbrella. The Athletics Association of Barbados, they've come on board with a 5K road race, which they really want to build up. It's going to be around the same time as the Run Barbados, so we're hoping to mesh these things all together into a running festival. Fencing, orienteering, shooting, both two disciplines of shooting, both the Rifle and Pistol Federation and the Clear Targets Association. Squash, we'll be having the big national championships. Table tennis, have already started the preliminaries of their championship, which will be held in the Independence Games. Taekwondo, tennis, and tennis will also be introduced in this year. Well, that's in another category, but the concept of beach tennis, which we are hoping to promote fairly heavily. Triathlon, surfing, and swimming will also be on board with championships. There are 7 special tournaments also under the umbrella. Aquatics will be doing their cross-country and odd event tournament on the 25th of November. Basketball will be introducing a 3-on-3 street ball junior team qualifying tournament. They're actually qualifying a team to represent Barbados at another regional tournament, but they're bringing the qualifiers under the BiiG umbrella. There's Bridge, who we're happy to welcome for the first time, again with a big EL Cozier tournament from the 25th and 26th of November. Golf will be doing the RBC Classic, and they'll be doing their own press conference because that is a very, very large event, and I think almost oversubscribed already. But so they'll be talking a lot about that. Hockey is on board, netball also. There are 4 demonstration sports. We've also invited national federations who just want to put on their sport from the point of view of introducing the sport or promoting the sport to the public. Kayaking will be doing that. Beach tennis, as I mentioned, will be doing that. Beach wrestling will be doing that. They will actually be hosting a big tournament, but before that, to introduce the rules, the concepts, the scoring, and the sport itself to the public, they will be doing the demonstration event and explaining how the rules and the guidelines and inviting the public to participate to see how interesting a sport that can be. And also in orienteering, we'll be introducing something we call the micro sprint. So the big championships sound really exciting. To increase the level of competition and rivalry even more at all levels, the organizing committee has also introduced a number of innovative new challenges, some new penalties, and some new incentives into the game's rules. The whole intent is to encourage our national federations and our athletes to really put their best feet forward. Each sport discipline will now have the opportunity to qualify a champion who will be recognized by the Barbados Olympic Association as our big national champion on an annual basis. There'll be male and female in each sport. So for each of the sports taking part under the umbrella of the games, there's the opportunity for that sport to qualify a male and a female champion that will be recognized by BOA. In addition to these individual champions, the BOA will also be seeking to identify a big national federation champion. So in addition to the athlete champion, we are also looking for the administration that really stands out as a champion national federation. And we've actually put some rules in place. So we're going to be measuring a number of criteria like the quality of the event, the extent to which they exemplify the spirit of the games, namely the Olympic spirit, the Barbados spirit of pride in industry, and the concepts of inclusiveness and of environmental awareness that we're actually trying to promote within the games. Finally, we've introduced a new one that we found quite interesting because last year we actually had quite a large number of champions, there are a large number of sports, and there are even more sports this year. So the fact that you end up with 40 national champions in 20 different sports, male and female, we thought that at games of this nature, we wanted to highlight a particular individual or set of individuals who we would like to call champion of champions. So among the champions, we're going to have another championship seeking to find the male and the female champion of champions, or, in the terminology that we've used, our big champion. The first big with one eye, the second big with 2 eyes. So that is another that's another level of competition. So there's, and the way we're going to do that is once we've identified the champions, we're actually going to post a resume, the contribution they made today to their sport, on our social media pages, and we're going to invite the general public to select from their experience during the games who they consider to be deserving of being the champion of champions. And of course, in typical modern day social media parlance, the one with the most likes will become our champion for the year, our champion of champions. So in summary, there'll be individual sports champions for each sport. There'll be a national federation that will be the champion of all national federations based on the level of organization, the quality of the event, and all the things that they bring to the table. And then there'll be a champion of champion, or a big champion among the champions. In terms of awards and cash incentives, we took a position last year, and we're going to maintain it this year and in future, that in keeping with the Olympic ideal of sport for the glory of sport, the BOA will be rewarding all big champions and all other special awardees only with trophies and medals. In other words, we will not be using monetary or other such material incentives to entice participation. We believe that the power of true sport is much too valuable and priceless to be adequately rewarded with cash. We could never give enough cash for people who really make contributions to sport, so we've taken the decision not to attempt to do that at this stage. We maintain that in trying to do so, we may well undervalue and undermine the true power of sport. And I want to say something about what our vision of how powerful sport can be as a social development tool a little bit later. Well, not that I'm going to go on forever, but a little bit later. However, let me make it clear that all national federations are free to use their own judgment and their own initiative to do what is best for them at this particular stage of their development. The position they just articulated is that of the BiiG organizing committee and of BOA to some extent. As you know, with our other games, that's the attitude that we take. Now, anticipation. Besides the excitement that I stressed on before at the overwhelming response to the BiiG initiative, I also mentioned having great anticipation that have developed among the organizing committee at in terms of what is happening with these games. When we initially explored the development of the games exercise, the major obstacle that we mentioned, identified, and that we worried about was the clear lack in Barbados of adequate sporting facilities, the high cost of accommodation, the typical things that really bring high costs to putting on games, which is why we were skeptical about the level of participation. One of the impressive outcomes from 2016 has been the extent to which our sport administrators have been able to utilize local resources to develop innovative and unique sport arenas, using things like the beaches, the schools, and even in some cases, with archery, for example, just plain open fields to develop what turned out to be really high-quality sporting arenas for these games. It took a lot of initiative, it took some money, I must admit, but the results were actually quite impressive. So we have been particularly excited at the prospects for future development of things, for example, like our BiiG Beach Festival. This event has now been extended for a full weekend. Last year, it was just for one day. We now extended it for both the Saturday and the Sunday. And it seems destined, in our humble opinion, to become an international event in its own right, promoting innovative, high-quality, beach-based competition in a unique and idyllic Caribbean beach setting. Mr. Dave Farmer, who is coordinating that particular event on behalf of the BiiG committee, will give a brief overview after I do, so I won't infringe on his territory. Indeed, we are now at the early stages of exploring an additional similar concept, which we are going to call the BiiG, such as 3-on-3 basketball, street hockey, stunt cycling, skateboarding, road tennis, games that were played at the village level for the sake of playing games because people like to play games. What we're looking at is the opportunity to expand this into an organized aspect under the BiiG umbrella. And we will be starting this year with informally, just to get a feel for how the kind of response and the kind of things we need to do. So that's going to be part of this year's BiiG, but it is at the very beginning stages. I suggest to you that the potential for such a package goes beyond exciting. The anticipation which we are feeling then is that rather than lamenting our lack of a multi-million-dollar stadium, for example, we may well be celebrating our even more valuable natural beach and other natural assets as we grow these games using the innovation and the creativity of our sports administrators. In short, we plan to make lemonade with the limes that are represented by our lack of traditional stadia. In conclusion, as I said before, Nelson Mandela is reported to have said that sport has the power to change the world. I suggest that, if anything, this is an understatement of huge proportions. Sport is, in fact, the most powerful and effective social developmental tool that is available to any society to solve a number of critical developmental problems, ranging from things like crime, low self-esteem, poverty, discrimination, social divisions, chronic health diseases, obesity, and indeed many other social challenges. We just have not been leveraging this great asset to the extent that it can be in the past. The long-term strategic objective of the BiiG Organizing Committee is to leverage this concept of sport in such a manner that BiiG serves to contribute significantly towards addressing major social issues such as these in Barbados in the immediate future. And it is against this yardstick and against this background that we, on the BiiG Organizing Committee, will seek to measure our success and our effectiveness, or our failure, as we seek to grow this big project. So thank you for being here this morning, and I hope that you become an integral part of our attempt now to really sell this interesting new concept to Barbados and even beyond. Thank you very much, Mr. Marcus.
I kid you not, when we have our meetings, Lieutenant Colonel Brown speaks with equal, if not more measure of the same passion. If I was the Speaker of the House, I would say, methinks the ayes have it. We can add a couple more ayes to the ayes in there. Infinite possibilities, innovations, inclusiveness, the ayes keep going on. There is interaction here. Right, getting back to our agenda. The director of the National Olympic Academy will now put on his coordinator of the Beach Games Festival and flesh out that part of it, because last year for the big games, as we said, we unearthed a diamond, a rare gem, and the potential for it to grow and blossom even more will be fleshed out by Dave Farmer. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Martin. And since we have already established protocol, I will just move straight to the remarks. My comments are focused on the beach festival aspect of the big games. And as Mr. Brown said, the real purpose of the beach festival is to show how we can bring sports out of their traditional setting of a stadium, an arena, etc., and still have as good a time, as healthy a time, and as exciting a time at the beach. And the beach festival is scheduled for the weekend of Friday the 17th to Sunday the 19th of November. And it will be held at Pirates Cove Entertainment Center, which is on Lower Bay Street on that long stretch of beach, which everyone is familiar with. It just forms the end of Browns Beach as it approaches Bridgetown. We're planning to host a number of events, such as an aquathon, which is a combination of the swim and the run segments of a triathlon. Of course, beach volleyball, beach hockey. There will be a kayaking demonstration. We have netball fast fives, exciting netball, which has been brought to the beach from the stadium. Orienteering will have a power sprinting event. We have beach rugby. This is a special event above and beyond the International Rugby Festival, which will be held by the Rugby Association. We have, of course, sailing, the popular sailing event from last year, and this is being modified so that the boats can be brought very close into the beach, parallel the beach as a part of their course, and of course bring sailing more as a spectator sport. We have swimming, beach tennis, a new addition this year, very much along the dimensions of a beach volleyball court with a net, and of course the participants then use beach tennis rackets and a ball to play the sport. And of course there's beach wrestling, which will simply bring wrestling off the mat and onto the sand. Many of these events were successfully contested last year, and these are our selections for this year. There will be a brief opening ceremony on Friday, 17th November at 6 p.m. at Pirates Cove, followed by our first beach event, which will be beach wrestling. This event will take place under the floodlights and with the backdrop of the sand and the ocean. We'll set the scene for a weekend of beach action. Saturday and Sunday will focus on main sporting events, starting at 9 a.m., with a full program of activities throughout the day, ending at 6 p.m. daily. One of the new events for this year is a 5-kilometer road race on Saturday, the 18th November, which will start and finish at Pirates Cove. This event is being delivered by the Athletic Association of Barbados, but it is being held on that day and will be incorporated into the Beach Festival program. Last year, we received strong support from our event partners with their various products, which were offered on sale and sample at the beach. And we look forward to a similar situation this year in the 2017 edition of the Beach Festival. We have already been approached by a number of partners, and we are in the final stages in putting this together. We look forward to seeing everyone at the Beach Festival in November as we bring a number of traditional, exciting sports to the beach. I close by thanking Pirates Cove for their assistance and generosity in partnering with us in this special event, and we look forward to future partnerships with Pirates Cove in special events. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Not because I've had a recent haircut, but it always causes a little tingling in the back of my neck when I hear people share a similar thought process to mine relative to the fact that we never originally had a formal building as an academy for sport in Barbados. And the street, the beach, the open field was where most of us would have honed our skills amongst the greats, and the very area of Bronx Beach produced no less a man than our current right excellent Cigarfield St. Albans Sobers national hero. Represented Barbados in many sports, with or without courts, in and out of the water. It's going to be interesting to see a 5K running on the sand. No, I'm just kidding. The 5K is a road race. It's not going to be running the length of Bronx Beach. What I do want to do now is allow a young lady who is going to be speaking in her capacity as the Secretary of the Barbados Rugby Football Union and bring us some welcoming news about a World Rugby Sevens being held during the staging of the big games. Kathy Daniel.
Good morning, everyone. Protocol having been established, I'll just launch right into it. Last year, the Barbados Rugby Football Union hosted our very first International Sevens tournament, as in a private tournament not sponsored by the regional governing body. And it was a really great success. This year, we're going for it again. This is the Rugby Barbados World Sevens, taking place, as you've heard, December 9th and 10th. The location will be Trent in Whole Town, and we're expecting teams from several parts of the United States, England, Scotland, maybe some further afield as well. But it's going to be a really, really good experience. And the thing about Rugby Sevens, it's sort of the equivalent of 2020 cricket. There's very much a party atmosphere. And if you go and you see the people that come down, they dress up, they have costumes on, it's quite remarkable. So we're really looking forward to that, and we have some interesting activities planned for these visitors, many of whom probably couldn't find Barbados on a map, but we're going to fix that for them by the time we're through with them. We're also taking part in the Beach Festival. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. For the last couple of years, the Barbados Rugby Football Union has been working on growing the game. We've taken it into several primary and secondary schools, And there, we found some phenomenal young talent there. So the Get Into Rugby program, that's going to be featured. I think I'm encouraging, hint, hint, encouraging our GIR coordinators to get as many young teams into the beach festival as possible, because I think that's going to be a great way to interact with other sporting federations, to let more people know that, yes, we do play rugby in Barbados. Because every week I get that, you play rugby in Barbados? And I think, so much work still to be done. But slowly but surely we'll get there. We look forward to this entire big games with a great deal of enthusiasm, because, as I've heard from previous speakers, the importance of sport, how it can bring people together. And rugby in particular, a lot of people will not know this. Rugby, we don't have rules, you know. We have laws. And they're very strictly enforced. And it is something else to see two teams or two individuals who've been going at it on the pitch, really trying to, you know, open a hole in the space-time continuum or something. They hit that hard. And as soon as that whistle blows, it's like, cheers, mate, shake hands, and off we go. So that is part of the Olympic spirit that we are encouraging and fostering. I too see sport as a means of dealing with some of the friction and anger that I can see coming out in violence, especially among our young people. That's not the way we want Barbados to be. We really need to work together, and I think sports, events like this, perfect opportunity. Someone can get involved at every level. There's something for everyone. And I'm going to get one last plug for rugby. There's a spot on the team for every body shape and size. People have this idea that rugby players are like these massive 300-pound men. And yes, we have a couple of massive 300-pound men. We also have smaller, taller, faster, whatever. But the rugby team, especially 15s, there's a spot for everybody. The body shape doesn't really matter. We'll find a spot for you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Come on out to the Beach Festival, and please come down to Trent's on December 9th and 10th.
Thank you very much, Kathy Daniel, but I respectfully decline your offer to play rugby. A man must know his limitations and operate within.
We have vets, you know. If they touch, there's no tackle, it's okay.
Mentioning of vets, I'm a scaredy cat. Right. I'll stay on the, let's say, the spectator side. I will watch it, especially when it's at the Garrison Savannah on Saturdays and there's horse racing going on where you can have multiple events taking place. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the formal elements of our launch information. If any of you have any questions, you can feel free to pose them now. The panel will be available for a brief spell to answer your questions. Just indicate and they'll come to the podium. So I'll take a small pause while you reflect on the lovely logo and chew on the actual potential opportunities for involvement. It's not too late to come on board. Visitors, as you can appreciate, even now as we're being streamed live on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, the intention is that as many of the, and don't get jealous of the fact that there's no beach squash, but we can work on beach squash at another point in time. The opportunity to stream each of the disciplines as they're having their special day. Who knows, a multi-channel, etc. It will make the job for the photographers and the reporters and the cameramen and the other people interested in following the sport, with the limited resources and the fact that we can't all be like me everywhere. We'll try our best to bring that to you. So I just give a little break, and any of the reporters present who want to ask a question, feel free to do so.
response of the associations to the fact that you're putting it back into you're not offering money which would have been offered before?
Okay, thank you for giving me the chance to actually expand on that philosophical position a little bit. And I want to make it clear that we're not saying that there is not a place at certain developmental stage for monetary or material incentives. What we're saying is from a conceptual and traditional BOA perspective, is that we have always focused on, and the Olympic perspective is that we have always focused on seeing sport as being developed as an extremely valuable tool for the value of sport itself. This sport is about the value and the privilege of playing sport itself. And it also is a significant developmental tool. The problem with equating it with monetary value is that in difficult times when there are challenges with finances, for example, then you compromise your valuable sport. There are stages where maybe at the initial stages, and in the particular case, for example, of road tennis in Barbados, it may well be a good developmental strategy to use some incentives to accelerate the involvement. But what I would want to caution against is a long-term dependence on this concept of paying for commitment to sport, and that we use this transition stage to develop a love of the sport for the sport itself, over and beyond. I can draw a reference to some other situations, for example, with our Calypsonians, where over the years we have given fairly attractive prizes. And I note with interest that at many points, many of our top performers have opted out, either because they felt that there needed to be significant increases in the prize money at stake, or because they've won so many times that it's kind of lost the appeal. The point I want to make is that the value of concepts like these is so immensely beyond anything that we can actually afford to offer as prizes, that it may be better to concentrate on the conceptual value, on the esoteric, altruistic value to society, which is way above what we can never pay, for example, Gabby, for the contribution he has made to Barbados in terms of literary contributions. In money, no matter what kind of dollars we try to conceptualize, when you think about the contribution he has made, I mean, for a whole generation now, how do you value that? There is a line of thought that maybe instead of trying to value it in money, we value it in terms of legacy, in terms of spirit, in terms of cultural development, and learn to appreciate those valuations. So there may be a stage where money is the right thing for that time, but in the long term, we certainly would like to see us move. And as you know, in the Olympic Games, in the Pan Am Games, in the CAC Games, in the traditional Olympic disciplines, we tend to say that the value of sport is the honor of playing the sport. I hope that it does.
There are two concerns in what you're telling me.
Right.
My biggest concern is that I believe photography is an art.
Right.
But if you start to paying me 1 month, don't come back the next month and tell me to appreciate the artistic
Agreed.
value of my photography because you've already set the precedent that you're paying me
Right.
for my work,
Right.
which we had done last year with after so getting paid. And it's all well and good to have these altruistic notions and talking about legacy, but legacy doesn't translate very well when you're going at mass scale.
That's true.
Where everybody ends up.
Right. Yeah, actually,
And similarly, we all know that the ultimate goal of all Olympians is to convert that gold medal into real gold.
exactly. Well, into monetary value.
Yeah.
Right, right. No, that's true. Well, first thing though, last year we didn't pay last year either, and we made it, last year we took the very same position actually, but we did allow any national, which we are doing again this time, any national sport federation at their discretion can do that. So some people actually did give monetary prizes last year, and some will do it this year. The position I articulated is that of the organizing committee and of BOA itself, so that BOA will not get into it becomes very, very complicated with 30 or 40 different sports if BOA is going to take responsibility for giving prizes, and we don't do it for the other games, so we're just being consistent with what we're doing. Right, right.
Could I just add to what the discussion here? I mean, there's psychological studies that that have been done to say that if you want to motivate persons to do better, monetary
Mr. Archer, a moment, please. To share that with the viewing people, please come forward in your capacity to the microphone.
Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome.
Getting me in
You're
trouble.
welcome. No, you're not
How
getting
you know?
in trouble.
How you know that I'm not supposed to be here? One motivating factor for employees, you know, the question has been raised and there's been research done on it. Does paying people actually, or giving them a monetary reward, does that actually incentivize better performance? And it's been shown that that is not actually the only way or the best way to motivate better performance. Actually, the things that a lot of people are actually looking for is the acknowledgement of their success. I've actually commented on this in a presentation I made to the Sports Council, where I'm talking about applauding success, lauding success, and then rewarding success. At some point, maybe the BOA will get into having a policy where right at the top, if you win a medal, you will actually, at a major games, you will actually get rewarded for that success by there's a dollar value attached to that. But the applauding of success, when teams come home and you have somebody at the airport saying, well done, excellent effort, thank you medical staff and so on for doing a good job. That's the applauding success. And where I was getting to is the lauding of success, where people do well, and you can project their images on the side of buses, and you can have on the shop front window outside the BOA that is now blank. If you could put images of the successful athletes there, and people can see them going around, that also can be a great incentive for those athletes and others to be attracted to those sports. So as I had indicated at another meeting earlier this week, when I went through Veracruz, Mexico, for the CSC Games in 2014, an enormous 20 or 30-foot cardboard cutout at the airport hanging from the ceiling was of Shane Braffett, who had won a CSC gold medal earlier that year in Mexico, right? Those are the sorts of things that will give you chills when you see that as a Bajan in a Mexican airport, right? An image of a Bajan at a Mexican airport. Now, why can't we do that at the Grantley Adams Airport more often? Why can't we have that on the side, again, on the side of buses, right? Lauding the success of successful athletes, and that's the sort of those sorts of things. It's not an actual monetary. I know that cash, everybody likes to have the cash because you can go into the supermarket and buy something with that. But actually, getting that thrill as an athlete and seeing your image as an athlete, that is also a major thing. You know, very few people in Barbados know that the most successful medalist at the CAC Games for Barbados, I'm sure that even only a handful of persons at the AGM will know that the most successful athlete at the CAC Games for Barbados is Nikki Nichols, who is now the president of kayaking, right? Those are the sorts of things that the administrators need to have on their fingertips and know. And when people see Nikki, they should be, just well done. Those are the sorts of things that I think will also incentivize athletes and make them strive for greater performance. Just saying well done and things like that. That's my 2 cents.
I laud and I applaud. I just wonder how much the consultants were rewarded for handling that concept.
Yeah, it's actually called recognition is a good point. But going back to the other point that you made, though, that is separate and distinct from a system in place that offers the opportunity to gain employment from sport, which is a different story altogether. The difference is that in a system that allows you to gain employment from sport isn't only concentrated on the winners, on the person who comes out on top. it actually is actually a structure that allows any person willing to put in a hard day's work, who may never win, may actually never win a championship, but before whom you will never get the level of competition. So I see a system in place where you can actually have people choosing a career in sport, where, as you said, they can go into the market. But the winners and the development of the sport and the conceptual, the glory of the sport, I actually still think that needs to be, because you can't really pay for that. And I support Craig's position that recognition is far more valuable than the monetary part of it.
Look, Trevor, I agree both really. I'm saying
right,
yeah. I'm saying that way Craig's speech was, as usual, articulate and beefy and sweet. I'm also, as an addition, I'm also going to be careful as well. Because if cash, however small it is added to these games, it takes the games to another level. Right. So while Craig's speech is well-sounded and articulate and good for the House of Commons, really and truly is that I really feel that cash will take it
you want to get this good piece of market too.
If something appears in tomorrow's paper that a fellow is getting $25,000 for being the outstanding champion athlete of these games, all of a sudden the fellow in Bushall starts to think, something, well, let me start following these games.
So are you offering something on behalf of the nation?
No, I am saying that I gave Craig, Archer, and Magnus, and I'm also saying is that Ken Moore gives a little extra something to it, take us a plus. So I'm saying is that Craig Archer, very, very good. Good Theresa May speech. But I still feel that that cash would take the games to another level.
Right. As we wrap up this morning's press conference, I want to thank everyone for their interaction and participation, members of the head table as well, all the other federations who are here, and those of you following us on the numerous media. I also want to just throw a small thing into this discussion about monetary reward for sport performance. This is the Olympic Association's idea. This is the Olympic Association's perspective. Should someone who wants to make it a professional entity, feel free to consult with us here on the organizing committee of the big games, because you see the end point where the person is the NBA champion or the world champion or the champion driver or jockey or whatever in the sport. What the Olympic Association does, and I'm not running for presidency, so you don't have to quote me on this, provide you with that developmental, participatory, and necessary growth and development support, that if you choose to become a professional athlete along the way, you have what it takes, the behind-the-scenes stuff, the enjoyment of participation and involvement, more than the actual doing it as a job. And in conclusion, I wish that there's someone who can wave their magic wand and provide that necessary, bills have to be paid now, money for our sports people, so they wouldn't only be participating in the sport looking to see if they could win a car or get a house or what other immediate monetary needs they may have, and can get back to fully and truly, and I'm getting impassioned, another eye. Back to the original concept of Baron Pierre de Coubertin, to be higher, faster, and stronger. And that concludes our press launch on the 2017 Big Games. Hope you had an informative time. Should you need any more information, do check out our Facebook page, check us on Instagram. The YouTube channel will have a concluded version of this. And I give way to my chairman.
Okay, just before we close, I think everybody would have been handed what we're calling our prospectus. This document attempts to outline all the rules and guidelines and the schedules and the participants and all that. What we're hoping is that from the press point of view, if you have an interest in any one of the particular events, rather than even feeling the need to talk to the organizing committee, we've actually identified the dates and the sports and the responsible managers, the people who will have the actual details that you want. So rather than call me to find out what's going to happen with hockey, we've actually identified the name of the manager of that whole event and his assistant. And you can, we've actually briefed these people that to expect calls from you about what is going on, about why it is not happening, or when it is happening, and all that. So this document actually provides you contacts for everything that you want, the dates, the rules for the competitions, all spelled out in here, and also yeah, but you'll get that separately. We didn't want to publish that. Yeah, but we'll give you that as a separate attachment. We didn't want to make that too public, but. So this document, if you have any questions at all about the document, but the document guides you to most of the answers that you should really want. So thank you very, very much for coming this morning, and we look forward to your continued support.
Right. I have been advised by all my advisors. I've been informed by all my informants. And I'm thanking all of those who are thankful. And that is the end of today's press launching. Good morning.